What I'm hearing is if you're making AI part of your team, it sounds like the AI is getting to know you, right? Like you're feeding the machine and you're giving it input as to who you are, how you want things, and it's going to give you a more tailored response the more you interact like you would with somebody on your team. I mean, they know you, they know how you work, and they give you better advice or information because they've got tons of context. They've known you for years. They know your strengths, they know your weaknesses, and you get a better outcome.
That's it. And that's ultimately what you want. And that's the separator, right? Because who's going to do that? Only the top 5% of salespeople versus what the average are going to do. They're going to just chuck a question in and get an answer and send it out.
The average are going to write emails that don't sound anything like them and replace Google with AI.
Welcome to the Sales Problem Podcast, where we talk everything sales, success, and personal growth. Thanks for joining us. Let's get growing.
Welcome back to the Sales Problem Podcast. This is season 5, episode number 3. And here is what we're going to give you today. Do you want to learn how to overcome big challenges? Do you want to make effective decisions under pressure? Do you want to exceed targets and generate explosive growth? Well, if you're like me, it's a big hell yeah to all of those. These are just a few of the promises from the many book titles of our guest, Tim Castle. And today you have found your way to what will be, no doubt, a sales and high performance masterclass. So stay dialed in with me. I'm your host, Daniel Burns, and this is the podcast that looks to shift you from sales problem to sales opportunity. I want to help you grow your sales, but I also want to help you grow yourself. So I bring on the very best guests from all over the globe so that while you drive to your next sales call, you get sales lessons, you get insights from thought leaders and industry champions for the one goal of helping you create the best version of yourself. And if you're going to do that, I got to give a shout out to our podcast partners. You're going to need some caffeine. So don't forget about Crank Coffee. Today I'm drinking Get Cranked. And I've got it poured into my Sales Problem Podcast mug. So if you're anything like me, you're going to get up in the morning, you're going to plan your day. I can't do it without caffeine. So give a little Get Cranked a try. It's a beautiful dark blend from the Neal brothers. And of course, if you're out there on the road, our other podcast partner is Mama T's Protein Cookies. Now, if you're watching the podcast, you're going to see an empty wrapper. It's so delicious. I had to smash it before the show even started. It's just too good to sit in front of me. 21 grams of protein in a cookie. So if you're looking at that drive-through and you're thinking about going to get a donut, how about you just skip it? It's not going to have that much protein in it. These are nutritious and delicious. Give them a try. As always, I link you to both those great products in the show notes, so just click on it. And why don't you just throw in the Sales Problem 15? You're going to get 15% off both of those items. It's going to come straight to your door. I just can't make it any easier for you. All right, let's get to the focus of our podcast. Today we have Tim Castle on the pod, and I got to tell you a little bit about his background. But before I get into his bio, I want to tell you a little inside story. I typed into ChatGPT. I said, who's the one person that I have to have a conversation with in 2026? My friend ChatGPT said Tim Castle. So I went over to his website and I went, okay, they've got it right. Let me tell you about Tim. Tim Castle is a best-selling author, award-winning business leader, and globally recognized negotiation and sales expert. He's ranked among the world's top 30 negotiation professionals by Global Gurus in 2025. And we've had many people from that list on the show. But Tim is known for his innovative approach at the intersection of negotiation, emotional intelligence, and AI-driven strategy. That's a triple threat right there. His best-selling books include The Art of Negotiation, which has been translated into multiple languages and used in research papers. The momentum sales model and the first domino are used by universities, Fortune 100 companies, and startups worldwide to train sales teams, develop leaders, and win flagship clients. Tim helps individuals and organizations unlock their potential and achieve breakthrough growth. Tim, welcome to the show. Are you ready to help us solve the sales problem?
Thank you so much. I mean, I'm ready to get cranked. I'm ready to have some mama teas. What an intro. What an intro.
That's awesome. Let's crank this up, shall we?
Let's turn it up a notch.
All right. So I got to jump into the same question I ask every guest, Tim, because the show started, the original sales problem is, how do we get growth year over year? You know, you're out there, you're selling, you have a great year, then the clock turns over. What's expected next year? Well, we got to keep growing. But I'm always interested to know from the people we bring on, what do you think is the biggest sales problem that's facing either salespeople or sales teams?
Yeah, that's it, right? That's a really common place to start in terms of we hit the year and the clock's running and the targets have gone up and we're like, how do we repeat this? Let's go again. And I think when it all comes back to it, it's mindset, right? You're thinking in linear terms from a business perspective when you think about growth. Let's get 30% growth, let's 40% growth. This is the biggest sales problem that we have right now. It's mindset. When I walk into sales teams and I see those top performers and then I see those mediocre performers or even those performers that are falling behind, the biggest difference is mindset. And there are parts that it affects, right? The first is lack of consistency.
Okay.
Lack of consistency. And what I mean by that is not practicing the fundamentals, right? They've defaulted to a place of hope instead of knowing, right? There's a place of hope where they're hoping these big accounts come in. If all goes right, I'll hit my target. That's not where we want to be. That's not what you should be doing. And I can tell it's this mindset issue. It's a self-identity issue, right? If your identity is at a certain level, in sales, it's going to reflect in your numbers. And so that could be someone who hasn't hit target for a number of quarters and it's affected their self-identity. But really, if you dive into it, imagine if that same person had started winning quarter after quarter. The problem is, what happens is if there actually isn't an identity shift, if that isn't their real identity, when they go down, when they don't hit quarter, it'll affect their mindset. It'll affect how they sell. And so you really haven't got that self-identity where it needs to be because they're just rolling with the external. And so I break this down as you need to start practicing the fundamentals again, gaining trust with yourself because you don't have it right now. You're just looking out at the external events and going, I haven't hit quarter or target for the last couple of quarters and I'm about to get fired, basically. And so you're selling from a place of hope. You do not have the momentum in your pipeline or your process. And you need to get better and you need to recognize that. And that's the biggest part is if you're going to keep blaming the outside circumstances, if you're going to be in that victim mindset, because 9 times out of 10 they are, and you can give them the best accounts, the best list of qualified leads, and they will still find a way to turn that into a problem. And so it goes back to mindset. The next part is then how will they take that mindset into the room when they're selling, into every interaction, and they're selling from a place of fear. So it compounds, right? Because you've got that fear and that short-termism, and you know that your head's on the chopping block effectively. So again, the root cause of this is your mindset. and your self-identity. And so not being able to push back on a client when they're making mistakes, when they're pushing you hard for, say, price and things that don't make sense for your business, that's all they're almost like the outcomes, the symptoms, the things you see as a sales leader that are happening that reflect that problem, that sales problem that teams are facing right now. And the next part of that is they're going to come to you as a sales leader and want concessions. They're going to want to make decisions that are against your business in order for them to hit target, because they know they're in this problem, which is they haven't hit target for many, many quarters in a row. And so instead, they need to start to become the guide that can say no to these clients, that can push back and to raise their self-identity, where it doesn't matter what's going on outside, whether they're winning, whether they're losing. It literally doesn't matter, because they know they're a top seller. And so that's where you can fix all of these symptoms. I've only mentioned a couple here, like lack of consistency and selling from a place of fear. But that's my belief. That's the biggest problem that teams are facing right now in an environment that I believe is going to get harder, not easier.
Tim, I promised that this would be a sales masterclass, and what we're 2 minutes in, and I it already is. I've just been writing notes because there's so much that you just said there that I love, and so people listening, mindset is one of the big sales problems. I heard you say victim mindset, and I'm wondering, is there a link there when reps just don't have the accountability to the situation? Like you're saying, there's a victim mindset, but it's everything else that's causing my numbers to be down, but it's not really me. Is that kind of the rep we're looking at?
Yes, and it plays out in a poor me scenario. And every like imagine you're having your one-on-one and you're sitting down with the rep, and they're going to come in and they're going to tell you that the quarter's done, there's no more in the tank, and they're moving on, even though they haven't hit target. But the same thing's going to play, this conversation's going to play out all year. You're literally going to repeat the same stuff. They're looking in the past and they're letting the past predict the future, and they're not actually implementing the fundamentals. One of my fundamentals is the 9 before 9 a.m. And what that means is, and I write about it in the momentum sales model there, which actually won the Axiom Book Awards in 2025, so for a silver medal. So I think this is good that a sales book can go out and start to win book awards, because sales is the absolute number one skill you can have, the ability to influence in the room, right? But the 9 before 9 a.m. is a concept that I came up with when my back was against the wall, when I walked into an organization and they said, "Hey, sorry, Tim, you've taken this role on, and we just don't know if it's going to work. We don't know if this business can even survive. Actually, the last 2-3 sales directors haven't been able to get it going. You're probably not going to hit target." And I was in a position when I didn't have the luxury of not being able to hit target. I had to hit target. I had bills to pay. My back was against the wall. This had to work. I'd staked everything on making this work. And to find that out and to be like, oh, so you guys knew that you weren't sure if this business could even work in this region. It was a challenge that lit me up inside. And I was like, right, let's get after this. And the 9 before 9 a.m. concept, what it is that you, before 9 a.m., are going to ensure that you have made contact with, have been in front of, have had coffee with, have emailed, have DM'd, have had a phone call with, have WhatsApped 9 of your qualified, healthy prospects every day before 9 a.m. And what it does is it informs that consistency. It roots you in accountability, and it starts to create the trust with yourself that's been lacking because you've been focused on the external and what's going wrong. And so what I saw was, when I did this, when I held myself to that standard, I was creating 45 extra initiated interactions per week on top of the normal day's work. And then when I was following up every 3 days, that was about the right cadence. I was breaking through into new accounts, which meant I was getting diversification. I was proving the organization wrong, and I was proving that you taking accountability and not taking the external commentary of this business might not work, and everyone else has failed before you, probably not going to hit target. Not listening to that. 9 before 9 a.m. can get you out of any jam. And that's where the idea for the momentum sales model came from, because everything I did to scale that business, and I was getting like 200, 300, 400% to target. Like, we're talking like brilliant commissions, brilliant accelerators, and paying for good amounts of holidays and other things. So it's where you want to be, right? You want to have that momentum. And that's where the momentum sales model framework talks you through how to go from that place of stuck to that place of exponential growth, not just growth.
I love that. What I picked out of that is trust with yourself. You're setting that activity, and every time you execute, you're building that trust with yourself. And I love that you're creating this standard in your own life that before 9 o'clock, all this is getting done. And then when you see the results, how can your confidence not go up and continue that standard?
That's it. I love talking to you, Daniel. I'm loving this. I'm loving this, by the way. You are a very good interviewer. Like, you really, really are.
Well, one of the things I want to ask you next, Tim, is doing the research on you. We both seem to use the same verbiage around helping people become the best version of themselves. And I couldn't help but notice on the website and on your YouTube channel, it says, believe it is possible. And that stood out to me. I know it wasn't by accident that it showed up on your site, but it catches my attention because I think that people today are struggling a lot with doubt. They're struggling a lot with comparison. You see so many people that are just have these highlight reels all the time. And, do I compare to that? And then their own limiting beliefs. What do you think the role of believing that it's possible plays in somebody's ability to reach their goals?
I believe belief is a fundamental law of success. I believe if we boiled it all down, the idea, if you want to start, even people like Napoleon Hill, Bob Proctor, like, I'm sitting on a cushion right now from Bob Proctor, which is believe, think, do, right? Like, everything, if you go back to it, like when I started my transformation journey, and it was a transformation journey because I wasn't always this top 10 negotiator and all these awards and all this stuff. Like, inside I was, right? But I wasn't activating that muscle in the way that I perhaps am representing it today. It starts with a belief. And I had that motto since I was 19, when I negotiated my way into a top London university, into the second year of a psychology degree that was already oversubscribed by six, 7 people. So the wait list was already that much deep and it was already full. I was told that there was no way you can get in. Oh, and I had no application. So I wasn't in the system. I had no, and the course started in 2 days. So, and I was living in Newcastle at the time, and I had to, this was a London university. So long story short was that moment when I was able to engage every stakeholder and get them invested in my story, in my ability to say, right, well, it's this university or nothing. Like, I'm coming. This is where my heart is. This is where I want to be. I believe it's possible. I believe it. What would we need to make this happen? I get that I haven't applied. I get that you don't know who I am. I get that I'm just some random guy trying to negotiate my way into the second year of your very prestigious psychology course that, of course, is oversubscribed. And, I might not even have the grades to make it. Like, but I'm going to be here. Like, let's. How can we make this happen? And when that happened for me, it changed everything, Daniel. Like, it really did. Like, it made me realize that you have talents and gifts inside of you that everyone does. And everyone has a bigger future, the ability to believe it is possible and create what they want in their life, except we're choosing not to. We're choosing to go with the average. We're choosing to believe that voice and the people around us that are closest, because people around you, closest enough to you, like family, they will say, what are you doing? This is insane. It's costing you money. It's not going to work. Why London? Why now? Like, have you thought this through? Like, of course they're not going to let you. They will all give you those doubts. They will feed those doubts. And the only thing is that connection to believing it's possible. And it's carried through on my journey. In the university example, then, I use it even today, right? It's my fundamental mission to help people believe it is possible. That's got me. I've walked into radio shows, book deals, podcast guests, right? Some of the podcast guests you want to get on the show, like if you're not believing it's possible, if you're not carrying that energy and that feeling, and it's not just being positive, it's not just being optimistic. Of course, optimists, the stat that says like 24% better in terms of mindset, in terms of growth, in terms of being switched on. If you're an optimist and you're approaching a problem from an optimistic mindset, you are going to have 24% more productivity. That's fine. I'm talking about game-changing, quantum leap type believe it is possible. And so when you're approaching podcast guests, I'm sure you have this too, you get that feeling inside, like if I just message them right now, I'm pretty sure they'll say yes and they'll come on. And it's following that intuition, that gut feel. So again, it comes from that resonance with self, knowing that it's possible. And that's got me onto stages around the world. It's got me on, like, I can't tell you, it's helped me impact millions of people. That's the level that we're talking about. But it all started from this small switch of just from just that knowing, right? Well, now I know that's possible. What else could we create?
I love that. There's somebody that's driving right now, Tim, that I know that story just really inspired somebody, because I definitely felt that. A little follow-up question, something I'm super interested in is if you've got somebody that's just lacking confidence right now, like they just really don't believe in themselves. Do you think it's possible that they can borrow belief from mentors, from coaches, from other people that can maybe help them convert that? They're in a bit of a low state. They don't really believe in themselves, but when they get the right help, the right support, the right tools, the right energy even of somebody saying, hey, we can do this. It is possible. Do you think they can borrow that belief to go further than they might on their own?
150%. So when you have a mentor or a coach, or even just your boss that believes you in you, it changes everything, because it's that self-identity piece. It goes back to that. Even in that job, right, where I said that everyone around was saying it wasn't possible and it was too hard and it's never happened before, there was one manager that helped me unlock that I'm amazing at sales, right? And it wasn't this, oh, you're going to go out and crush it. It's a small booking. But his belief across the company spread. And then it starts to become, you start to see it in yourself, like, hang on, what do you mean this isn't normal? Like, and then you start to go, oh yeah, that's just what I do, right? And then you start to own it, but you first get it from somewhere else. And it's the same thing with books. Like, right, this is the art of negotiation. This book, yep. The purpose of this book, it's really should be called The Art of Possibility, because I wanted people. I wrote this when my self-esteem, and I'll share something I've never shared before, but when my self-esteem was pretty low, right? The purpose of writing that book was actually to make myself proud of myself. It was, can I do something hard? Can I write? Because at the time, this is over 10 years ago, when I sat down to start writing this book, I had no idea how to write a book. I got a C in English, like a B in English literature. Like, the point is this will be pretty hard, because you've got to go figure it out. And at the same time, can you commit to doing something? It took me 3.5 years. It got rejected by tons of publishers. People told me, why do we need this book? They literally said, Donald Trump has written The Art of the Deal. Why do we need a new negotiation book? And I was like, well, kind of have a on the ground experience here. Like, I'm a negotiator, and I was back then for 10 years. I was a negotiator, negotiating these deals day in, day out. And I was seeing the problems that everyday people face. So I had this moment where I was like, hang on, I know that there's an issue here in terms of negotiation, how much it can change your life in everyday negotiations, and how much value people are leaving on the table. That's what I'd write a book about if I could. And so that process, if you follow this through, I had no idea that would be the top 10. It's in the top. If you Google it now, it's the number one book on Amazon, probably for job interviews, career development in the UK and the US. It's in the top 10 negotiation books in the world. It's been translated. That stuff wasn't the why, yet that was the outcome. The outcome was for me to borrow belief. I had seen this issue, and then I have people that believe in me, and tend to really basically say, I can do this, and can I be consistent with myself? Can I commit and make myself proud by getting to the end of writing this book, even with all the rejection, even with everyone saying, well, we've already got Donald Trump's book, why do we need your book? And then the fact that it obviously now is doing what it's doing in the world is just an amazing outcome. But I think people should look around and go, I'm going to elevate the voices that do say, I can do this, that can really push you forward. And you've got to tune out the noise. So the people that are saying it's not happening, that's where the separation comes. And that can be tough, right? Because, and I'll finish with this, you might have to make some tough decisions, like leaving the job you're in because the environment isn't right. And that's what I had to do that. I had to leave an environment because it wasn't suiting where I wanted to get to and who I wanted to become. And that was tough because it was comfortable. It was easy. The path was already laid out. You can go on and become MD of this place, whatever it is, right? But who would have I been in that process? It wasn't fulfilling my inner need. And I would encourage everyone to just sit back and only surround yourself with those people that can give you that belief. Borrow the hell out of that belief and then run with it.
Tim, that is absolute gold. That's some of the best stuff I think shared on this podcast. I don't even know where to jump in, but I love, who do I want to become? Such a powerful question. So many people ask, what do I want? What are my goals? But who do I want to become is such a different question. And I love that you had that juxtaposition between, I had a little bit low self-esteem, but I wanted to do something hard. Because so many people are thinking, well, I just want to get to that goal in the easiest way possible. But that act of really doing something hard, and I love that you said, I want to make myself proud. I think there's somebody listening right now that can challenge themselves and say, what is it that I could do that's hard to make myself proud so that I can elevate myself to that next version of me?
And keep those promises to yourself. I think that was a big one for that. It was like, I'm not sure how we're going to do this, but if I can keep this promise to myself. I've told people I'm writing this book, right? I've told people, okay, I'm now going to stick to that. I'm not just going to, this isn't going to be something I just say and throw out there. Like, this is something we're actually going to do, and I'm going to surprise them.
Love it. So want to pivot over to always the primary objective of the show, Tim, is that somebody is in their car right now and they're listening. They've got goals for 2026. They're trying to get to things right now. What do you think the biggest difference is between that top 5% and the average rep that has nothing to do with talent? We've hit on mindset, but are there some other separators that you think the best of the best always seem to do this? And somebody listening right now could say, okay, I don't have a check in that box. I'm going to take Tim's advice and help myself get a little bit further up the board.
150% again. Let's go for accelerator territory. Like, that's what we want people to go into, right? I feel like this podcast is all about overachieving and hitting those impossible goals. For me, the biggest thing that isn't to do with talent, that the 5% reps are not doing, or like the 95% of reps are not doing, the average rep, is that ability to have what I call magnetic influence. Mm-hmm. And so if we break that down, and we go back to the beginning of the conversation, the average rep is there going, I'm focused on me. I'm focused on hitting my targets. I want that promotion, but I don't want someone to see, I don't want my boss to see that I don't really know what I'm doing. because I've got myself to a position. Maybe I'm manager, maybe I'm director, whatever. I'm fairly senior, and I've had my certain style, and it's worked so far, but I've never really hit it out of the box. Whereas the top 5% of sales reps, they have magnetic influence. They are able to go in and make a meaningful impact for their clients. And the reason is because what their attention focuses on, they see all over. And so when you are selectively tuning out all the things, the paths that can't get you to that accelerator territory, and I do believe it is that, because you choose what you focus on, ultimately. And there are distractions. There are bookings that, again, you hope for. There are deals that you hope for that probably won't come in. But the average sales reps tends to spend all their time on those deals. The top 5 are out there creating more and more deals because they're tuned in to a place of abundance and a place where they start seeing. Okay, I'll give you an example. We were in Tokyo 4 days ago, and I wanted to work out. And I've got 2 boys. They're 5 and 8 years old, and I saw this Gold's Gym, and I'm like, bloody hell, like that would be good. Could I ask the wife and could I have a workout? It was her birthday, so could I work out in Tokyo? And obviously that was obviously not. That was, I turned it into a joke, and it was, oh, I'm just joking. Anyway, the point of this is, then because I'd pointed it out, and because Dad wants to go and work out in Tokyo instead of going to see the cherry blossom, we saw Gold's Gyms everywhere across Tokyo. And it got me thinking, this is exactly like what I'm talking about with magnetic influence. And there's a whole framework around this. But the top 5 sales reps, they're seeing opportunities that resonate everywhere. The same as I'm seeing Gold's Gyms across Tokyo. My family started seeing it. It's the same concept. As a sales leader, when you train your sales team to tune into the real opportunities, the ones that are going to get you to where you need to go, into that accelerator territory, and are willing to take the risk to go there, to have the conversation. And I mean the big accounts, the ones that everybody has not touched because for some reason they're not for us, or they don't. This is what I want you to get into. It's that impossibility. You're breaking through it and saying, look, I'm going to tune my attention into the moments that matter, into the accounts that matter, into the people, and I'm going to give back to those people. I'm going to have generosity, I'm going to have gravitas, and I'm also going to be out there making sure that we have gratitude for the business that we have. So I call it the 3 Gs, but you've got gravitas, so you enter the room like it's there. People know your presence. You've got generosity because you're able to say no to a booking. You're able to say, hang on, I don't think we are the right partner for you, but I know someone that is. You become what I call a super connector. And as a super connector, as a networking super connector, you are out there pulling these different strands and connecting people because it's in who you are as a salesperson. You then become a super valuable person to know, and you're trusted because you're advising them like you would your best friend. Hey, hang on, I'm not sure we can deliver on these goals. I can tell you what we can do. And if that sounds good, we can go forward. But let me just be transparent here. And that increases the level of trust. And then you're connecting people. Oh my goodness, you've got magnetic influence. You're in the room and you're grateful for it all. That's the kind of energy you want to be representing. And that's a top 5 salespercent rep energy, which is completely different to the average.
Absolutely. The 3 Gs, gravitas, generosity, and gratitude. Did I get those right?
It's like,
oh, that's gold.
G to the power of 3. Something.
Yes. G3. You made me think actually of a story that there was a hotel when I was selling photocopiers. I called on a hotel and there was just so many machines inside this hotel, but I couldn't really find the decision maker. And I went back to the office and I added them to my forecast. And I sat down with my sales manager and he's like, just don't waste your time. We've tried that. It's, that's the impossible deal. And something about hearing that, I was like, that's the impossible deal? Well, I guess if I close that impossible deal, that would be the ultimate, right? So I just put my head down, didn't listen to anybody else. It was on my forecast to the point my sales manager was getting annoyed. Like, come on, take this off. You're dreaming. And then the day that I closed it, it was like 10 months worth of quota. And everybody was like, oh, how'd you do that? But what I got from what you said is the 95% are looking at the roadblocks and the distractions and the things that they can't control, and saying that's a reason not to. And the 5% are looking at that and saying there's still opportunity within that. Is that along that path?
Their expectation, the average is here, right? They're only expecting to go here. And so they're like, let's just do the status quo. The 5%, the top 5 or top 1%, they're out there hunting in a completely different way. They're out there serving. They're out there consulting. They're out there guiding. Yeah. They're almost like someone you'd want in your company, but you kind of know their brand is getting pretty big, and they're out there and they're going to get taken if you don't look after them. It's that kind of person that you just know. They're not out there being aggressive. And I think the difference is I've seen people hustling. I've seen people take before 9 a.m. and go. I also advise, showing up at someone's office if you're not getting breakthroughs and all this stuff. But the problem is sometimes they turn that into an aggressive salesperson. And I'd say that's not, there's a massive difference here. It's like, it's you just being able to spot that printer shop, that printer deal was something that you personally could get, that you have your own insights and life experience. And it's something that, it felt like the right move for you, and that you're going to go for it. You're going to take the risk, and you're going to be accountable for it not working, right? Obviously, everyone's watching you and saying, don't do this. And you're there going, we're going in that cave. We're going to go light this up.
Yeah. I want to switch over to a hot topic around AI. And everybody's looking for how they can use AI, how they can be more productive. But I want to pick your brain a little bit on what you think people are getting wrong right now with AI and selling. What is it that people maybe aren't seeing?
Well, I'm loving AI right now, especially if you put in who should I speak to in 2026 and it says Tim Castle. Like, come on, AI, let's do this.
We both have the same friend of ChatGPT, don't we? Yeah.
ChatGPT is my man, or woman. Whatever you are, you're amazing. Yeah. Thank you. People are getting AI wrong. 100% they are. They're seeing it as a chatbot instead of how they should see it, which is a colleague. They should be seeing AI as part of their team, and therefore they should be treating it as you would a colleague or a team member. The top advanced leaders in AI, the way they're using AI is significantly different to where the masses are using AI. They're giving it full context. What does that mean? If you were sitting down with your colleague, you wouldn't just say, hey, what's the best way to reach this client? Or give me a sales strategy for this client, whatever. You wouldn't just chuck it out there. You would give full context to that client. You would tell them what success looks like. That colleague would know what you expect. It would have the full context of the situation. And that means that the onus is on you to prompt better. And I don't just mean prompt engineering, because there's lots of ways you can do prompt engineering. I mean, you need to do a CODO framework. So that's character. You need to give your AI a character. And I mean aim high. I don't mean, say, be a junior analyst. I mean, be the CEO with 20 years experience. You've done awards. You've broke through every account. AI is a polymath, and it's the best at every subject that anyone's ever been. Therefore, we should leverage the hell out of it. Yeah, we should be giving it the character and telling it who we want it to be so that it can represent that tone. It has that lens on the world. And then from there, we should tell it the objective. That's the O in CODO. So objective. What is the problem we are solving? Is that the real problem? Can you look deeper and test that assumption? And if it's not the real problem, can you solve the real problem? Then you give it the guardrails. These are the do's and don'ts. So tell it what it should do and what it shouldn't do. So don't give me jargon. Don't use buzzwords. Do not sugarcoat it. All the biases that AI has, apart from saying Tim Castle should come on your show, that's one we can keep. Do give it to me in a form that I can understand. Do give it to me in 2 to 3 sentences. Do speak to me like I'm someone that don't understand this. Do fact check all of the information and have cite checks, like citation checks. Do not make up anything. Do not guess. Like, you can put all these guardrails in. Imagine you're just getting generic responses from AI that sound the same, especially if you're just saying, write me an email to this person. That's rubbish, right? You haven't even tried. Yet that's what we're telling a colleague to do. Yet we wouldn't in real life to a human. So train your AI by training and preparing better yourself. And then finally, the output. So that's the final O, output. What do you want it to look like? Do you want the bullet points? Do you want the 2 to 3 sentences? Do you want this in a spreadsheet? What are we specifically doing? And the key here is to tell it what success looks like. So upload an email, share a screenshot, share a file, give it all the answers that it needs to make a good piece of work happen. That's what people are getting wrong with AI. And so the fundamental piece is they're not using AI or seeing AI as a colleague and then delegating to it. They're using it like a chatbot, which was like 2 years ago. And so they haven't evolved how they use or see AI. And then the next piece, if you really want to get advanced, is you should be checking everything through a second or third LLM, right? So that's going to expose all your blind spots. So ChatGPT is giving me one answer. You need to see if Tim Castle comes up when you have Claude, right? And all the others, right? You need to be cross-checking and challenging your assumptions and exposing those blind spots and stress testing. And that's how you would refine the output. And that's where you go from generic to outstanding in terms of output, because you've become a better user. You've seen AI differently. And finally, you retain all the judgment as the human. And this is what my next book, Magnetic Influence, is about. Is how do you become that hybrid negotiator? You retain all that judgment, the trust, the decisioning. That's what you have to retain. You don't delegate that to AI. And so you then become someone who leads with AI. You become someone who can operate and orchestrate at that level. And remember, AI has changed because it's multimodal. You shouldn't just be texting AI. You should be having full-on conversations with it through voice. Like what we're doing now, I can speak freely without editing on the fly, and it's coming from the heart, right? It's more natural. If we were just texting back and forth, I'd probably edit the sentences a little bit. We'd hold back and it would change. You don't do that with AI. Share through voice, screen share, show it your presentation, and in real time, ask it for feedback. Get it to brainstorm with you. That's the next level of AI.
What I'm hearing is if you're making AI part of your team, it sounds like the AI is getting to know you, right? Like you're feeding the machine and you're giving it input as to who you are, how you want things, and it's going to give you a more tailored response the more you interact like you would with somebody on your team. I mean, they know you, they know how you work, and they give you better advice or information because they've got tons of context. They've known you for years. They know your strengths, they know your weaknesses, and you get a better outcome.
That's it. And that's ultimately what you want. And that's the separator, right? Because who's going to do that? Only the top 5% of salespeople versus what the average is going to do. They're going to just chuck a question in and get an answer and send it out.
The average are going to write emails that don't sound anything like them and replace Google with AI. I just want to throw this back at the listeners. CODO is character, objective, do's and don'ts, and output. That is such a great framework.
Yeah, I think it's nice to remember that, because honestly, we'll say this on a podcast, or I'll say this in a book or whatever, and then we won't do it. But like, the more we can just get ourselves into the habitual nature of, right, character, objective, do's and don'ts, output. And it's simple. It takes 5 minutes, but the output will be drastically different, and your results then, and but the biggest thing is what you said. It's treat the AI as part of your team.
Yeah. I'm coaching somebody right now, Tim, and one of their goals for 2026 is to use AI to have better strategies for their business. So something like this is so practical because they can write this down and say, okay, am I following this framework in order to get better results? So I love it. I'd like to go over to negotiation, because I just have seen this with so many salespeople. I think it's going to be incredibly valuable, where the number one pain point for sellers is always that they're getting beat up on price and that they're getting ground down against the competition, and they've got multiple quotes, and everybody's undercutting them. And we all know we have to create value. And I think good salespeople are trying to do that, and they still find themselves in this negotiation with customers where at the end of the day, if they get the sale, they've got all the work, they've got none of the profit, they've got none of the commissions that go with it. And that's kind of where they're left at the end of the day, even when they win. How can sellers be better negotiators within their deals?
The best thing, Daniel, is not needing the deal at all, right? And it doesn't mean having a BATNA. I know that everyone talks about best alternative to negotiate deal. What it means is being completely detached from the deal, because you're in that deal to make the best deal for your client. And if you're doing that, if you're really doing that, you're there to advise them on why there is an issue. And if someone else has a better deal for them, that is legitimately for them, they should take that deal. Yeah. I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to break down on paper right now. And this is where the power of story comes in, because as salespeople, we have to become absolutely awesome at storytelling, because you should have a hero in every story. And the hero is your audience, not you. It's not you telling them how you won the day and all this kind of stuff. You're the guide in this. You're there to help them understand their world better. So the hero, you're going to frame it their problem, because every hero has a problem to solve, and it's hopefully a really drastic problem. And that could be, right, okay, if we don't use this technology and we don't move on this new AI software or tech process, we're going to miss out to our competitors. It could be that we're behind the times. It could be that we're not getting the efficiencies, whatever it is, a drastic problem that they know if they have to change something in order to move forward. There has to be a change that needs to take place in your story. And so from there, you move through the hero, going to a place where you become the guide, and you share with them, and you paint that picture through another hero that has been in the same place. An example of what happened to that hero, an example of what that change that's uncomfortable and unknown, and it's all framed through your hero's lens on the world, perception of the world. And when that happens, it's a penny drop moment, because you're not trying to pitch them. The problem is people are going into conversations and they're pitching their stuff without getting the right environment for the hero to hear what you're putting down. And so you've got to frame everything through another hero's journey that's just like them, that they can see. And then from there, and I'll say this to clients that are there, they're struggling to send emails, they're struggling to get breakthroughs, they're struggling to get anyone to respond. It's the same thing. You've got to trigger that curiosity in a way that if you've been going in and telling your story in the same way and it's not been moving the needle, you need to change the story. Do not just go back. If you get their attention, do not just go back to that same story and start selling them again on your stuff, because you know where that's going to lead. So you've got to mix this up. You've got to go down a different route. So what if that is you, and you can hear me on this podcast and go, hey, Tim, this all sounds great, but I'm getting beat up on price, and what you're saying is just storytelling. I'm doing that all the time. Yeah, you might be. But you've got to take them down a different road. And that different road is actually you listening to their problems, you uncovering from them. And when you've detached from that deal, you can do that properly from a place of, I don't need this deal, not because I've got a best alternative to a negotiation. No, because I need you to get the best deal for you, for your business, for your long-term strategy. And I'm going to help you do that as the guided advisor. And because I'm a super connector, that networking super connector that's out there, I might know who can help you. And it very well might likely be me, but let's figure that out. And I'm going to hear you. So I'm going to be listening to understand and not just to respond. I'm going to be there whether you... The difference is I'm not going to be pitching and inserting that pitch that I've already said a million times to a million different customers into that box. I'm going to be telling you something authentically that you didn't know, and I'm going to be showing you. And I used to do this as a negotiator. The thing that happened was I was negotiating deals with people who didn't want to make deals. So if that's the situation, there's a person on the other side of the table that's like, I really don't want to do business with you because you're basically saying I have to lose money. Basically, you're saying you're taking money away from me. I would draw out the mathematics of the deal, show them how much profit we were making, how this is incremental money to them, and educate them just look, even if you take nothing away from this conversation, you will know more about this industry, because if another partner comes to you with the same type of deal structure, you'll know where they're actually taking you for a ride. So I'm going to turn you into an expert on this. So you'll be able to see this is how we construct deals that bring incremental value to you and are in your best interest. Now, if you choose not to do that, that's totally fine. But at least we're on the same page, and you then feel trust for me because I've literally put my cards on the table. I've shown you transparently how these are structured and where people will take advantage of you. And it's a very different kind of selling to we're the best, we're best class, we're best in class. We've got these case studies and they say amazing things. And why are you not doing what I want? Because all I need you to do is put this booking with me, and trust me, I won't disappear as soon as you sign the deal, or I won't hand you over to that other team. I'm going to be there for the long term. It's not like blah blah blah. Like, that's what you're doing. So mix it up in that moment and sell based on the authenticity, based on that generosity, based on being who you are in the room, and you'll get much better relationships out of it. And from there, and obviously hold your price. You don't need to be hold your price. Like, stay at that. Have some benchmarks and be like, look, this is where we
play.
Obvious.
I want that easy path. I just want to say yes, get the deal done, and go home. Yeah.
But yeah.
Listeners, I just want you to rewind the last couple minutes because there are so many great insights into that. What I loved, Tim, was be the guide, and the customer is the hero. We're not the hero. And what came up for me is you highlighting storytelling. And immediately what I thought of is the times where I was in front of a client telling a story about something that was a pain point. It was an actual story about somebody they either might have known, or it was just very legit. They were in the same shoes, same thing. It just carried so much conviction, so much credibility. But telling that story is ultimately what influenced them, because you're leading them through a journey and you don't sound like everybody else that they're looking at, that's coming in and pointing at the brochure and these are the specs and these are the fees, like all of that. So you make yourself stand out.
100%.
A question for the sales managers that are listening, Tim. We want exponential sales growth. Sellers want it. Managers want it. What do you think is the missing ingredients for managers? Like, how do they help their team get to that next level? If there's a VP of sales or a sales manager listening that goes, I've got some people on my team, I just don't know what to do to help elevate them. What are the things that they could tap into for exponential sales growth?
I love that. And we are all about exponential growth. And that's exactly how we should be thinking. First, obviously, I'd recommend the 9 before 9 a.m. and implementing that, and then seeing which team members actually follow through and can do it for more than 3 days in a row, because that might tell you who's not necessarily got the right attitude towards sales, but also towards what's possible. The second part would be analyzing, do your salespeople have the high quality questions that they can be asking when they're backed into a corner, when they're facing rejection, when they're getting these objections? What are the high quality questions your team are asking in the room? And doing a sense check on that, and not necessarily doing it from the perspective of, I'm going to separate you into top performers and average. This is just leveling up the team. And the final part would be leveling up the language. So the language we use the words we use are so important. And so the language around, if we're busy, you can see, I see it all the time. We've got sales people banging their head against the brick wall. They're too busy. No, this is a great situation to be in. You're winning. You are winning. You've got stuff going on. Like reframing that, let's get the language correct, because we can start to inspire more of what we want through the language we use. So being precise with your own language, and then giving a handbook. I would build a handbook on what words to eliminate. This is a really good solution, or like just basic stuff. Come on, like people are saying this all the time. And to your last point, these words, these filler words that we don't need, like a lot and really and very. This is very good. Like let's put some better words in there that reflect the excellence that we're bringing. And we're a superb partner, so let's be that in our language, and let's elevate that way. And you can slowly influence that with how you repeat certain phrases and certain values. And I think that's how you can start to drive exponential growth subtly, without your team feeling like they're being investigated.
I love the reframing and language, because that speaks to the coach in me. Because I always listen for these words. And it's true. I mean, the language you use is the reality that you create. And thinking about this podcast, a lot of people focus on problems and, I got this big problem. And you go, wait a minute, if we turn this around, doesn't it also look like an opportunity? And how come we're not reframing this? How come we're not changing the language? And if we look at it differently, we've got a different situation on our hands.
And you can see that when you're in a presentation as well, when someone's speaking, but it feels forced, or they're speaking and they're trying to remember a line, and you're like, if you just said what you need to say instead of trying to remember the exact, get into the flow. It's this flow of sales. It shouldn't feel forced, because the language that you're trying to remember from ChatGPT or from your presentation, either that's got to be automatic so that it feels absolutely natural, or it's got to be natural in your way. And then when you own that flair, that flow, it all starts to come together. So yeah, very, very important.
That is so true. I just had somebody I was coaching speaking, and they did an incredible speech. And the feedback they got at the end was that it sounded too good, like too polished. We had repeated it so many times. It was so perfect that the feeling got lost and the flow got lost, and it didn't end up connecting like it should have, because I'm too focused on the words and not the meaning and sharing.
That's why, if you and sharing, but also if you're in a tense situation, sometimes where within the right context, humor can be used so well to break through, but also to show that human side. Like if you make a joke around the fact that this is not going well, it can actually burst that tension bubble and start to make people feel more real, right, and connected, because that's what we want to do here as salespeople, is connect.
I want to do kind of a full circle moment and just come back to something you talked about at the opening of the show, which was identity and shifting identity. Can you open that up a little bit for the listeners for us? And what kind of identity shifts can people make, and why is identity, so important?
I have to say, Daniel, I'm loving this. Your questions are bloody good. They're amazing. Very good questions. Very good style of interviewing. I'm really feeling this. Anyway, back to your question. Identity. What can we do? If I was going to raise or shift or transform my identity, I want to be acting from a place in the future. I want to be not looking at the past. And this is the biggest mistake that salespeople make, is they focused on the past and they use that to predict what will happen in the future. We look at our past quarters and our past sales numbers and our past wins and our past behaviors, and we go, that's how it's going to be in the future historically. And it's absolutely incorrect. If we want to shift our identity, we need to act from the goal, and the goal should be a big, impossible goal, a big, old, scary goal that we don't know how to achieve, because that's going to force us to become something different. And in behaving and acting as the person that's already achieved the goal, we then see ourselves doing things differently. And so over time, our identity shifts to that person. What will happen is you will get this Bob Proctor, who's not alive anymore, but I feel I was I did a lot of training with him. He calls this a terror barrier. And so what will happen when you're shifting your identity is you will hit the terror barrier. And that's a big moment because either you'll bounce off that terror barrier and you will basically default to your past state or your past identity, or you'll break through and you will actually see yourself becoming that person. That could be anything, right? It could be someone that's going on stage and talking on a panel. If you've never done it before, it could feel a bit weird. Versus if once you've done it, you've done it, you've broken through. And the reason why it would be different is probably because you didn't just rehearse your lines, you're able to speak authentically and you felt good. So in all of these situations, when we want to sell more and we want to see ourselves as the sales leader that continually, like, once you've done that, once you've shifted that identity, you're someone, your standard is here. So it never drops below that. You might have a bad month or whatever, and things that happen, but you will find a way to get back up to your identity because it's who you are. So that comes from acting and thinking in a certain way. And you need to be thinking from a place of the goal already achieved. And it's not just thinking, you need to be feeling that. How would you feel if you'd already hit target? And not in a hopeful way. How would you feel if you had that certainty? How would you feel if you were walking through the world knowing that good things happen to me and I'm the luckiest person in the whole world? I say that to myself all the time. And I am. I'm the luckiest person in the world. How can ChatGPT pull my name up as the person you need to meet in 2020? Do you know what I mean? Like, these things are real.
Yeah.
And I'm the luckiest person. I tell that to my sons all the time. I'm the luckiest person in the world. We'll find a taxi. We'll find it, whatever it is. And we do. And so this isn't just belligerent self-belief. This isn't just believe it as possible, me spamming that out there. What it is you having a significant identity change, raising the ceiling, breaking through the ceiling on your self-identity and being in alignment with who you truly are. There's an alignment there. So yeah, if you want to be creating an identity shift, get those goals down, start journaling and going big and start really operating as you would if that thing had already happened. So it cuts out all the options, all the things that you're doing that aren't going to take you to the goal, because strategy is saying no to everything else. That's what strategy is one strategy. It's saying no to everything else that will not achieve that goal.
Amazing. Terror barrier. Is that similar to imposter syndrome, or are they fundamentally different? Is that I hit that terror barrier because I don't see myself as that person that I'm trying to become?
I feel like imposter syndrome is something we get fed from an early age, or from at a certain point in childhood or early teen, where we feel like we're not good enough and we just look around and we get told we can't do things and we lose that. Whereas I feel the terror barrier is something where you're going to break through eventually.
Okay.
And you just got to keep going to not back through. And one day you will break through. And when you do, your dogs or cats are very excited about this. They love the terror barrier. They're like, yes, break through. Come on.
They are cheering for you, Tim. There's one moment every night. I hope it's never in the middle of my podcast that they just break out into song. And sure enough, it's right now.
That's exactly how you should feel about breaking through your terror barrier. And I think that's because you have an intention there with a very specific goal in mind, and you will break through. But you'll also know if you go back and default to your old patterns and habits. And so then you'll go again, right? So it's a bit different, I feel, to imposter syndrome.
I think it circles back to that question of who do I want to be? And when you know that future state, you can shift your identity because you know the person you want to become, and then create the path towards that.
And you're willing to say no to the things that you have been comfortable doing, or processes, habits, behaviors, but you have to have discipline there. You have to have that want is big enough that you're like, right, no, we no longer do this. We do this instead. And so you step up.
Tim, is there something that I should have asked you that has not come out yet? Is there a question that I should have dropped that I missed?
Daniel, your questions have been some of the finest questions I feel I've ever been asked, in some of the most caring and connected conversation. You're a conversationalist. I can see why you have this podcast. I felt very, very looked after. The customer service on this podcast is just exceptional.
Wonderful. Two things that I love, Tim, is energy and empathy. I think both of those things are just, a huge important thing to always try to deliver is some great energy, but then, listening and trying to put yourself in somebody else's shoes.
I can feel it. You have really solid energy.
Tim, where can our guests or our listeners, find out more about you?
Well, obviously ChatGPT, the best.
That's the go-to.
A new book's coming out called Magnetic Influence, and the publisher will be mad if I don't mention that. So please go and check it out. It's basically how you can become a hybrid negotiator and get more, maximize your influence and persuasion in an AI-centric world. And I think that this is it's an evolution on all the authors that have come before me in the negotiation and influence space. And it's a book that's for the modern negotiator. You can find me on timjscastle.com, or if you need some training or some workshops, The Negotiator's Edge, that's my training company, or some consultancy. And on any kind of social media platform that you might want to use, you can follow me on Tim J.S. Castle.
Tim, you've been absolutely fantastic today on the show. So I'm going to make it really easy for the listener. I'm going to link all those things, especially to all the books, so that our listeners can go out and get them. Tim, today you've helped us solve the sales problem. You've given our listeners some insights they need to thrive and succeed. You've helped them grow by enhancing what they know. Listeners, I love you. I appreciate everyone that's tuned in. This podcast is in 38 countries now. It's growing, and it's because of you listening. So thank you for hitting play. Until the next episode, just keep creating the best version of you.